What if the thing you're doing to look professional is the exact reason people scroll right past you? Every day, small business owners sit down and make the same quiet decision. They open their laptop. They start writing their website, their bio, their emails. And somewhere in that process, they stop sounding like themselves. They start writing we. They start writing our team. They add a logo they paid $200 for. They write sentences like we are committed to delivering excellence. They do it because somewhere along the way, they got told that this is what a real business sounds like. Big. Polished. Faceless. Have you ever wondered why some businesses feel instantly trustworthy, while others, selling almost the exact same thing, feel invisible? It's not the price. It's not even the product. It's something much simpler, and much harder to admit. If you've ever tried to build something of your own, whether it's a business, a brand, or just an idea you believe in, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Because we're about to break down a pattern that's been quietly killing small businesses for years, hiding behind every polished website and every carefully worded About Us page. If topics like this interest you, the psychology behind branding, trust, and why people buy what they buy, consider subscribing. Every week, we dig into the timeless principles behind the world's most successful businesses, and the ones that never had a chance. Here's the picture. A woman starts a small skincare business. She makes the products herself, in her kitchen, testing them on her own skin first. She knows every ingredient by heart. She knows why she chose them. But when it's time to build her website, she doesn't say any of that. Instead, she writes, "Our mission is to provide premium skincare solutions backed by science." There is no our. There's just her. She didn't lie. She just disappeared. And she's not alone. Walk through 100 small business websites and you'll find the same thing over and over. A single person, wearing the language of a corporation that doesn't exist. No name. No face. No story. Just a logo, a slogan, and a sentence that could belong to literally any company on earth. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that instinct, the one that tells you to sound bigger, more official, more professional, is actually working against you. You'll see why the businesses pulling ahead right now, especially online, are not the ones hiding behind polish. They're the ones standing in front of the camera, using their real name, and letting people see exactly who they're buying from. Because here's the question nobody asks early enough. If you're small, why are you trying to sound like something you're not? The skincare business owner had one advantage the big skincare brands could never buy. She could answer her own messages. She could remember a customer's name. She could actually care, personally, if an order arrived broken. But she buried that advantage under corporate language, hoping it would make her look bigger. It didn't make her look bigger. It made her look like nobody at all. And that's where this story really begins. Not with a marketing mistake. With a much older, much deeper pattern in how people decide who to trust, who to believe, and who to buy from. Because it turns out, we've known the answer to this for a very long time. Long before websites. Long before logos. Back when trust wasn't built with branding at all. It was built with a name, a face, and a handshake. Let's go back to that word for a second. We. It seems harmless. Almost like the safe choice. But here's what's actually happening in the brain when someone reads it. Nothing. No image forms. No face appears. There's no one to picture, no one to trust, no one to blame if something goes wrong. We is a word designed to protect a company. It spreads responsibility so thin that no single person has to own it. And that works fine if you're a company with 10,000 employees and a legal department. But if you're one person running a business from your kitchen table, we doesn't protect you. It erases you. This is where a simple idea from psychology explains almost everything. People don't build trust with categories. They build trust with individuals. It's called parasocial trust, and it's the reason you feel like you know a podcast host you've never met, but you feel nothing when you read a corporate mission statement. Your brain isn't wired to bond with an organization. It's wired to bond with a person. Picture two bakeries on the same street. The first one has a clean sign, a matching logo, and a website that says we bake with passion using only the finest ingredients. No name. No owner mentioned anywhere. The second one has a handwritten sign in the window. A photo of the owner is taped to the counter, flowers still on her apron in the picture. Regulars call her by name. When something's wrong with an order, she's the one who fixes it, right there, in front of you. Which one do people talk about at dinner? Which one do they recommend to a friend? It's never the bakery with the clean branding. It's always you have to meet Sarah, she makes the best sourdough in town. People don't repeat slogans to each other. They repeat names. This is the trap. The moment a small business starts talking like we, it starts competing with every other we out there, and it will lose every single time. Because a real corporation has scale, systems, and 100 people answering support tickets. A solo founder pretending to be that same corporation is fighting a battle they were never built to win. But flip it around. The moment that same founder says I built this because, or I personally test every product before it ships, something changes. The business stops being one of 1,000 faceless options. It becomes a person you feel like you already know. This isn't a new discovery. It's not some clever marketing trick invented in the last few years. Long before logos existed, before companies had names at all, people were already making buying decisions this exact same way. They just didn't call it branding. They called it reputation. And to really understand why a face beats a logo every single time, we need to go back further than social media, further than advertising, back to a time when your name really was your only business card. Before there were logos, there was only your name. Think about a small town 200 years ago. There was no marketing department. No website. No reviews section. If you needed a pair of boots, you didn't search for the best boot company. You asked, who makes good boots around here? And someone would say a name. Maybe it was the cobbler on Main Street. Maybe it was his father before him. Trust wasn't built through advertising. It was built through reputation, passed from person to person, one conversation at a time. Your name was the entire business. If you did good work, your name traveled. If you didn't, your name died with your shop. Somewhere along the way, as businesses grew bigger, that personal trust got replaced with something else. Logos. Slogans. Corporate mission statements. Big companies needed a way to feel consistent across thousands of employees and millions of customers, so they built brands that didn't depend on any single person. That made sense for them. But somewhere in that shift, small business owners started copying the wrong lesson. They saw big companies hiding behind brands and thought, that's what makes a business look serious. So they did the same thing, even though they didn't have the size to make it work, and even though they were throwing away the one thing those big companies couldn't buy back. A real name. A real face. A real person people could trust. Now look at what's happening today, and you'll notice something interesting. The pattern is reversing. Think about the founders who became more well-known than their own companies. People who built businesses not by hiding behind a brand, but by putting themselves directly in front of it. Their audience didn't just buy a product. They followed a person, then trusted whatever that person built next. This isn't limited to one industry. You see it with independent coffee roasters who put their own story on every bag. You see it with small clothing labels where the designer does the photo shoots themselves. You see it with financial educators, fitness coaches, furniture makers, even software founders who post their own face explaining their own product instead of hiding behind a support email address. In every case, the lesson is the same. The business grew because the person was trusted first, and the product came second. Here's the part most people miss. This isn't about becoming an influencer. It's not about fame. It's about removing the barrier between the customer and the person actually responsible for the work. When there's a real name attached, people relax a little. They know exactly who they're dealing with, and exactly who to trust if something needs fixing. Compare that to a business hiding behind our team and a stock logo. If something goes wrong, who do you even talk to? There's no face to picture, no name to trust, just a support ticket disappearing into a void. Small businesses have spent years trying to erase the one thing that actually built trust throughout human history, a real person standing behind their work. And ironically, the moment a founder puts themselves back into the business, the small starts working in their favor instead of against them. Because a large company can fake scale. It can fake consistency. But it can never fake a name. And that leaves the small business owner with a question worth sitting with. If the biggest brands in history were all built by one real person before they became a we, why would you erase yourself at the exact moment you need trust the most? So here's the real question. If hiding behind we is quietly killing small businesses, how do you actually fix it? Not with a new logo. Not with a rebrand. With something much simpler, and honestly, much scarier for most people. You put yourself back in the business. That sounds obvious once you hear it. But most small business owners resist it, and it's worth understanding why, because the reasons usually sound reasonable on the surface. I want to look bigger than I am. What if people judge me? What if I don't sound professional enough? What if this doesn't scale later? Every one of these reasons feels smart in the moment. But look closer, and they're all built on the same fear. The fear of being seen. And that fear is exactly what's keeping the business invisible, because the audience can feel it too. When you hide, people sense there's nothing solid behind the words. When you show up, even imperfectly, people sense there's someone real on the other end. Let's talk about the mistakes that keep happening, because they follow a pattern. The first mistake is overpolishing. A founder records a video, doesn't like how they sound, records it 20 more times, and eventually just hires someone else to be the face instead. But polish isn't what builds trust. Honesty does. A slightly awkward, real video will outperform a perfectly scripted, hollow one almost every time, because people aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for a person. The second mistake is hiding behind we too early. A one-person business writing "our team is committed to your satisfaction" isn't sounding professional. It's sounding hollow, because there's no one behind the sentence. If it's just you, say I. Say I built this. Say I'll personally make it right if something's wrong. That single word change moves the business from a stranger to a person. The third mistake is outsourcing the voice too soon. Hiring someone to write your captions, answer your messages, and speak on your behalf might feel efficient, but it removes the exact thing customers were connecting with in the first place. There's a difference between getting help with the business and disappearing from it entirely. So what does putting yourself back in actually look like, practically? Start with your name. Not a business name pretending to be a company. Your actual name, visible, on your website, your emails, your packaging. Then your face. A real photo, not a stock image, not a logo standing in for a person. If you sell online, show up on camera occasionally, even briefly. Let people see who they're buying from. Then your voice. Write the way you actually talk. Drop the corporate language. Say I instead of we. Say I made this instead of this was crafted with care. And finally, stay reachable. Answer your own messages, at least some of them, especially early on. That single habit builds more trust than any tagline ever could, because it proves there's a real person who actually cares if things go wrong. None of this requires a bigger budget. It doesn't require a rebrand, or a new logo, or a marketing agency. It requires the one thing most small business owners have been avoiding: being seen. And once you understand why that single shift changes everything, you start to see the real advantage that was there all along, quietly waiting, underneath every we you were hiding behind. Here's the truth most small business owners never sit with long enough to actually believe. Being small was never the problem. Pretending you weren't small, that was the problem. Every we, every stock logo, every polished sentence copied from a bigger company, all of it was an attempt to hide the one thing that could have set the business apart from day one. A real person. A real name. A real face willing to be seen. Think back to that skincare business owner from the beginning. She had something no billion-dollar skincare company could ever buy back, no matter how big their budget got. She could answer her own messages. She could remember a customer by name. She could actually care, personally, if something went wrong with an order. That's not a small advantage. That's the entire advantage. Big companies spend millions trying to manufacture the feeling of being personal. They hire people to write friendly emails. They train support teams to sound warm. They build entire departments dedicated to faking the exact thing a small business owner already has for free. And somewhere along the way, small businesses looked at all that effort and thought, I should sound more like them. It should have been the opposite. The big companies should have been trying to sound more like you. This is the identity shift that changes everything. Not how do I look more professional, but how do I let people see who's actually here? Not how do I sound like a bigger company, but how do I stop hiding the one thing a bigger company can't have? Because here's what nobody tells you when you're starting out. Nobody falls in love with "our team is dedicated to excellence." Nobody repeats that sentence to a friend. Nobody feels anything when they read it, because there's no one behind it to feel anything for. But people do fall for a person. They remember a name. They repeat a story. They tell their friends about the person who personally fixed their order, or the founder who replied to their message at 11 at night, or the woman with flour on her apron who remembers exactly how they like their coffee. That's not weakness. That's not unprofessional. That's the entire reason people choose one business over another when the products look almost the same. So if you've been hiding behind a logo, a version of yourself dressed up to look bigger than you are, this is your sign to stop. Put your name back on it. Put your face back on it. Let your voice sound like you again, not like a company that doesn't exist. Because the moment you do that, something interesting happens. You stop competing with every faceless brand out there, and you start doing the one thing they can never do. You become someone worth remembering. That's the whole game. Not size. Not polish. Not sounding official. Just being real enough that someone, somewhere, tells a friend your name instead of your slogan. If this changed how you think about your own business, or even just how you think about the businesses you choose to support, you already know what to do next. Subscribe, because every week we break down the psychology behind decisions like this one, the quiet patterns shaping how people buy, trust, and remember. The kind of principles that never go out of date, no matter how much marketing changes around them. Because in the end, the thing you were hiding was never a weakness. It was the only thing worth selling.